Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Wealth and Wellness Report. I'm your host, Diego, and today we have a really great guest. His name is Matthew Freed. He's a professional arborist and a really good friend of mine. Matt, thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am really excited that you're here because I've been wanting to have, kind of a deeper conversation around trees with you. I started this arboricultural craft of mine back in like 2010 and got right into kind of the heavy grunt work of the arboricultural industry. So I was climbing and doing a lot of tree care and pruning and removals, and it got really heavy on my body. And like I had a kid at the time, and running chainsaws up in the air just was not something I wanted to do anymore. So I was more called into like doing the people to people thing, like consulting, reporting, assessing. That called more to me. And over the course of the next few years, I began meeting a lot more of these consulting arborists in the industry. And I think that's where we met. I can't recall exactly how we met, but we met, and I immediately felt drawn to your craft, your approach, how you dealt with clients, how you like worked. And that was like a huge inspiration for me, because anytime I come across somebody that I really am drawn to in terms of like their work ethic and, their approach to their life, I'm just like, can we be friends? So I'm really excited that you're here, man. I'd love to learn more about like your personal backstory and how you got into trees.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible, but I've always been drawn to nature. I would say since middle school or high school, I always wanted to be outside, whether it was, playing in the woods or then going backpacking, learning how to camp. Really appreciated our natural spaces. And as my education progressed, I tried to align myself with studies that I thought would land me in a place where I got to, steward and appreciate outdoor environments and nature. Fast forward through all of high school and in college, I studied natural resource sciences. I was in a program that was really grooming people to work for commercial tree care companies, and pretty quickly realized that that wasn't my path. I didn't want to, work for a big company. I didn't want to be like a salesman or a high-level manager as my ultimate goal. So I was fortunate to find this wonderful nonprofit in Washington, D.C. upon graduation called Casey Trees. And their mission is to restore and enhance the canopy in the nation's capital. We would organize community tree planting events. Residents would apply and say, hey, we live in this block and there's a lot of opportunity for new trees. Some of it's in our park triangle. Some of it's in our postage stamp front yard. Can you help? And this was a really well-endowed nonprofit that could provide all the event management services. So we would walk folks through how to like organize the event on the day of, who's going to bring the coffee, who's going to bring the bagels, what species are going to go where and why, and let people, choose their species from a pallet. And then we'd roll in with, 25 to 50 2-inch caliber balled and burlap trees on a trailer. And there'd be 25 to 50 volunteers. And we would walk them through planting these trees in their own neighborhoods, having them put in some sweat equity to improving their spaces, and ideally, extending that level of ownership to the watering and maintenance that these new trees needed. And they were just fun events. Like every Saturday and Sunday we'd be in the community, meeting people, going to parts of the city that that I didn't live in or work in that I wouldn't have otherwise experienced. And did that for a couple years. And then, there's only so far you can grow with the level of experience and education I had, and with the confines of a small nonprofit. So hoping to be introduced to something new that I was unyet aware of, I applied to a master's program to get a master's in forestry at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. And I really went into that not knowing how I wanted to leverage it. A lot of people there are very focused, very career oriented. I've always known what they want and are going there to get that last piece to launch them to the big government career, the international nonprofit. And I didn't know. I just was unsure and thought it was going to, help me survey the landscape, no pun intended, to figure out what career I might find myself in.
How old were you at this time?
I think I turned 30 at orientation for this program.
Oh, okay. And how long were you with the nonprofit?
Probably 3.5 years.
Okay. So like out of college, going to a nonprofit.
Yeah, there was probably some real random jobs that are not worth mentioning in between all of them.
Got you.
I did like a conservation corps type summer counselor thing,
Cool.
At some local parks and a bunch of random stuff. But I didn't find, while it exposed me to a lot of cool stuff and I learned a lot of great stuff and met wonderful people in the program, it didn't, introduce me to some random thing that I didn't know existed that then became my career. I ended up sort of coming full circle and getting back into urban forestry at the end of it, albeit with, some enhanced credentials and experience. And I worked right out of school while I was, searching for a job, worked for this boutique sawmill.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in New Haven, Connecticut, where it was called City Bench, and they would take fallen trees, big, massive fallen, East Coast hardwoods often from like very high profile locations, the governor's mansion or the campus of Yale or, so-and-so. And then they would slab up all that lumber and then turn it into like really high end furniture, and put it back on that location.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a furniture builder. I basically learned as best as I could to try to operate the mobile sawmill without damaging the blades or hurting myself.
Yeah.
But it was really fun to, see a giant red oak and then see every different slab that came off of it each time. Just unique, beautiful, with different weird pieces of metal and nails and other hardware stuck in it.
Wow.
I really enjoyed that. And then, but it was a small company. There wasn't a clear way for me to justify all the education and debt I had acquired to be where I was. And I was on a sailing trip. I'm not a sailor. Happened to find myself on a sailing trip with a friend of mine who became a captain and seven other men. And we were actually around Catalina. So we'd flown out to California for this trip, and a buddy of mine were, on day 3 or whatever, we're below the boat hanging out, nursing off a hangover or whatever. And he says, "Hey, there's this job opening up in San Mateo." He said, I know about it because it's the job I do in the neighboring city of Menlo Park. You should apply. This gentleman's name is Brian Henry. He was at the time the city arborist for Menlo Park, and he's a good friend of mine. And I saw that job description and I thought, man, that's way over my head. I'm just out of graduate school. I can't manage, a city's 30,000 trees and make big decisions about which trees stay and which go and sidewalk repairs and budgets. Like, no one's ever going to hire me. And he was like, no, trust me. Like, I think you're qualified. Like, just try.
Yeah.
I'll help you with, getting prepared. So
you applied.
Threw my hat in the ring.
Nice.
And got a call like, "Hey, do you want to come out here? We know you're located 3,000 miles away. We can do Zoom or whatever, but you're welcome to come out." And I thought, all I really have going for me is my ability to fly out there. Like, I need to show them how badly I want it. So I flew out there, landed at the airport, went straight to Joseph A. Banks or whatever that place was, got 2 suits for the price of one. Went in there, had the interview, probably was so freaking nervous. But it went pretty well. They called me again, a week later and said, "All right, you're in round, 2. We know coming out here twice is kind of crazy. Why don't you, Zoom video conference?" And I said, I bought 2 suits and I really want to,
use
stick
the
to
other
this
one.
plan. Yeah. So I'm coming back. And I thought, if I just show them like how serious I am by just getting out there, and I did. And, I have to give a nod to the person who hired me. She was the director of Parks and Recreation for the city of San Mateo, Sheila Keynesian. She worked in San Mateo for about 40 years, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And is one of the wisest people I know, one of the just most consummate professionals. And she called me and she was very straight. And she was just like, listen, we're down to 2 candidates. Like, the other person is more qualified than you. Like, how serious are you about this? We really believe in your growth potential and in your ability to bring new things to the city. So we're rooting for you, but we want to know that if we extend this offer, you're serious about coming. And I just thought, that is crazy. That's wild that she just told me straight up.
Yeah.
She's going to take a chance on me. And, thank God there are people out there willing to do that, because it's not the easiest path. It might be the most rewarding eventually, hopefully. But I was very grateful. Said, of course, I'll be there. And that was in 2015 that I became the arborist for the city of San Mateo, California.
You went all in. Like, even though there was probably a chance that you still wouldn't get the job, like, you're like, this is it.
Yeah. Well, at that point she was saying, we will offer you the job pending, your background check.
Oh, wow.
If you commit to coming out here. She wasn't saying come out here and then you'll get the job.
Gotcha.
She was like, you're going to take this, or are you going to waste our time and let us lose that other candidate?
So what were some of the most rewarding and challenging aspects of managing a citywide forest?
I can tell you what the most rewarding and challenging ones were in the city of San Mateo. The most rewarding is seeing your efforts on a daily basis, driving by a strand of trees that were planted 2 or 3 years ago and seeing them thrive, and remembering that part of the sidewalk just used to be paved over, right? Mm-hmm. And now actually had trees that were beautiful and made it nice to drive down the city. Driving by a private residence where you remember someone applying to remove a large, beautiful deodar cedar and giving them some trouble about getting that permit, and saying, no, I think you could solve your problems with a little bit of pruning, and some patience. Mm-hmm. And I drive by them now still, 10 years later, and I think, that person, they really didn't want to remove it that bad, I guess. It's still there and it's still doing wonderfully. And
yeah.
Thank God I said no, it's a great asset. Those were some of the most rewarding experiences. The challenges is just,
development pressure. You're coming across developers that are looking to clear stands of trees and, urban sprawling.
I mean, that happens, and that's its own thing. But I would say that the biggest challenge is there's just always people who are unhappy. You can't please everybody. And unlike the private sector, where you can move on to new clients or new projects or new jobs, when you're a public servant, those folks are always your clients. And while the good ones are always around, so are the difficult ones. Mm-hmm. And they have your phone number and they have access to you. And you've always got to, serve them with a smile. And that, taught me a lot of skills, hopefully helped improve my patience and diplomacy. Mm-hmm. But it took its toll on me after 9 years.
Yeah, I bet. So what sort of, situations were you getting into, like on a larger, higher level that was really taxing on your mental and emotional state? Because to me, I'm thinking you're working with planning and building, you're working with parks and rec, you're working with, private sectors that are coming in, development that wants to, landscape or reformat or rebuild certain sections of the city that have, older and more mature trees. That would, and then all those conversations and negotiations that play a part in that. You're the guy, right?
Yeah. No, I don't mean to suggest that there was a lot of stress related to it, but it was just never ending. There was always a flood of emails from all these different competing interests. And then, now the mayor saw this one problem downtown that we have to jump on right now, even though we've got all these other things to do. And there was always like some kind of fire to put out, it seemed like.
Yeah.
which I think is just part of the job, is just part of government service.
Mm-hmm.
But it is different than where I find myself today. And certainly the role I have now as an self-employed consulting arborist really allows me to fine tune and select, who I work with and what I work on and how I structure my time. And I don't have any of the just bureaucratic, hodgepodge that you necessarily have from working either for a large company or for a government.
So you did you always have a consultancy, or did you start a consultancy at some point along the path of your city arborist profession, or like how did you end up going into the private sector from the public sector?
I didn't even really know what a consulting arborist was when I got here. But it's, an independent tree expert who helps people make decisions about the management of their trees, and you interact with a lot of them as a city arborist because they are, reaching out to you on behalf of their clients, whether it's to prepare a tree preservation plan for development or submit a single removal permit for a protected tree. And so it made me aware of that field. And then I joined the American Society of Consulting Arborists, which is sort of the industry association, the trade association for consulting arborists, and started to network with them, go to their trainings and their conferences and learn more about the work, which even for someone who's not planning to become employed as a consultant is really useful because they teach you a lot of tools for how to talk about trees, how to comply with our industry's best management practices, how to write effective reports. A lot of the communication around trees, they teach that. So they introduced me to consulting arborists, what consulting was. And then I think one day I just got a call from someone who needed a report about her trees. And she had found me, by searching on the Society of Arboriculture's website. And I just thought, well, I'm not going to say no. Sure, I'll come help you. I spent all weekend writing this report for this lady for peanuts. I mean, it did not make any sense from a numbers perspective. But I learned something and I thought, okay, this is whatever, some extra spending money, to have. And then calls would come in really sporadically like that. And I don't remember when the first real repeat client, came in. But I basically got to a point where I was doing a lot of work weekends and evenings as a consultant on projects, outside of the city of San Mateo.
Yeah, I would imagine there would probably be a conflict of interest there.
There's rules. There's definitely laws about, I wouldn't be able to serve people in the city of San Mateo. And there was some paperwork I had to fill out and some approval I had to get from my boss at the time to have outside employment.
Got you. The timeline, because I did this too, where I had a job, like a job, a 9 to 5, and then I wanted to, do something. Like there was something more that was calling to me, and I began to embark on that desire and taking action. It sounds like you kind of fell upon that. It wasn't like something inside of you were like, I want to be a consulting arborist and I want to start a business. It's just like people started calling you and stuff, and then you started, helping people out because you're that kind of guy. You want to help people out. How did it go from just helping people out to you realizing that this is an actual enterprise and or a business that you can, take and really foster and nurture?
Yeah. I mean, that was just based on the volume of work and the increase in work requests that would come in. I mean, I probably started doing this moonlighting in 2018, right? So, I think when you had people coming back, which would usually be architects or developers who have repeat work, not just one resident with a random project, but people coming back saying, hey, you did a decent job on the last one. Can you do this one? We have a new project here. and seeing, okay, the volume's picking up. All right. It's still, a fraction of, what I'm earning at my regular job. I only have a fraction of my time to devote to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two got, a little too close. And I thought, oh, okay, well, let's do the math here. Let's think about the risks. What happens if I leave the security of this government job that has a pension and the insurance and the holiday pay and all that? What if the phone doesn't ring?
Stability.
Yeah. But it just got to a point where I felt optimistic and confident enough and was willing to make the jump. And so far it has paid off.
Was that scary?
I'm trying to remember accurately. Yes, maybe a little, but not probably as much as it could have been. And it would have been much more scary and much harder if I had been starting from zero. If I'd said, I have this one job, I've never done this thing, I'm going to hang my shingle tomorrow and, shake the bushes for work.
Yeah,
it would take years, right? But I had quite a running start, and had made a lot of, connections. And once I had left the city, was able to more widely say, hey, I've got much more time, much more capacity. We've worked together on these things. What do you have going on? And I've just been very busy since then.
What about the biggest mindset shift for you? Was there, I'm sure going from bureaucracy into the private sector, I'm sure there's a big shift in mindset.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the shift started to happen when I was in my city job. I mean, I arrived and I was very idealistic, I think, and more emotionally attached to every individual tree. And I think I got a more tempered approach as time went on to, hey, the trees are not your only clients. The residents are also your clients. In the private sector, your clients are your clients. And trying to help people solve their problems as they are related to trees. And in the best case of scenarios, that is retaining trees and as many of the quality trees as possible while these folks can do the improvements that they want to do to their property. Just most of who I work with, I'll say most of what I do is related to some kind of development project, home renovations, home additions. So helping people meet their goals, get that design they want while preserving their trees. But in some cases, that tree is just simply in the way of any reasonable option, or that tree is not a good candidate for retention. And then helping folks to accept that and to get the permitting they need to remove and replace that tree.
Some of the most valuable properties on the peninsula are in very mature and well-developed urban forests. I think having a very mature urban forest and landscape brings property value up considerably. What amount of effort have you brought into these discussions with these developers and homeowners during these projects that really educates them on that fact that, not only is this tree valuable for these reasons, but removing this is going to probably impact some sort of aspect of their end game?
I think it's hard to convince people of that in real time and in real life. By the time I've met them, they already know what they want, what they perceive as being in the way. What I have said to people when I was a city arborist, and I will still say to people who just want, trees gone, is like, listen, like what you love about this neighborhood is the trees. And while you have a specific problem with that tree, or that tree is in the way of something you want to do, if you were just able to remove it, if there was no rules protecting it, and you were able to remove it, and everybody else was able to do that, like your neighborhood, this beautiful forested neighborhood, would look like a, putt-putt course, like it's, or a parking lot. And so you just extend that thought process out to all the trees out there. It's very bleak, what you would end up with. But people are very individualistic and have, invested money and time into a vision they have. And so I also understand that, I would say. I think one of the things that changed my approach to my work was becoming a homeowner. You know, like it's one thing when you're just renting houses and you don't own any trees, you don't have any land that you want to improve or a tree out there that you're concerned about. And it's a lot easier then to tell people, you know, what they should or shouldn't be doing with their trees.
Yeah.
But then when I owned a, you know, small stamp of land, all of a sudden I thought, oh yeah, I want to make the changes I want to make to this property. And I feel inhibited by I feel inhibited by regulations that minimize that, you know.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that sort of shifted my perspective. And I think another thing that comes up here that's unfortunate for the trees is the cost of living here, right, is so high.
Yeah.
You hear people talk about it all the time. Oh, it's crazy expensive. You know, every you can't buy, rent costs this much. Everything is absurd. But actually, like, the trees themselves can't afford to live here because you just bought a tear down in Palo Alto, and you're just buying bare land, right? And you've spent $3.5 million on that piece of land. And there's a redwood tree on it that's valued at $50,000, let's say. I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop you. You've already got that amount of capital invested. You have that's your dream home. Nothing's going to stop you from removing that tree, and nobody's going to stop you if you want it gone. And to me, that's like one of the sad realities.
That's a really interesting perspective, you know, because there is a huge gap between income and affordability here in the Bay Area. And I always like to think about how real estate, you know, these buildings and all this infrastructure, it all sits on the land. The land should really come first. Like, these trees that have been here for so long have more than just monetary value to them. There's so many other values that we can attribute these trees to. And I've always leaned towards preservation and conservation and the constant regeneration of a space through stewardship and cultural practice. I always hit this wall, though, with how real estate and development in real estate collides with the natural world, because the planning and designing and building of our urban infrastructure is so extractive. It's so pollutive. It's so disturbing to the landscape that we, for some reason, haven't figured out a way to develop our infrastructure that ties in all of the biophilics, all of nature, all of, you know, everything around us that we want to, you know, be a part of, grow with. When you're working with your clients, particularly the developers, do you lean more? Are you like more on the moderate side in terms of approving removals, or do you find yourself, you know, speaking up for the trees more like the Lorax? Because there's a varying degree of acceptance, I think, in the industry. Like, you'll have some really diehard, you know, conservationists that will, no, you can't even touch this with a pitchfork, or, you know, go ahead and knock down this stand. Like, where do you sit?
Yeah, I would say I'm not an activist, right? Like, someone comes to me, they have a general idea of what they want to do. They want to build something on this piece of land. The best thing they can do is get me involved right at the beginning to tell them what they have there, to inventory the trees and tell them what are the best trees that will have the best long-term contribution to your site, and hope that they can take that information and incorporate it into their design. You know, it's not me approving or not approving removals. I basically, you know, most often they come to me with their plans already, you know, dropped onto the parcel, and they've maximized the building to all the setbacks. So it's me looking and seeing, do we have solutions here to retain these protected trees, these valuable trees, or not? And then I will come back to them and say, hey, these trees add a lot of value to the site. Also, you know, just speaking, you know, very bluntly to you, you're going to have a hard time removing these trees. So can you modify the design like this or that? Can we bridge over these, these important roots of the tree? Can we decrease the footprint by this amount? What solutions exist to retain the tree? And I just often try to speak to them in the language that they're most ready to hear, which is, fortunately where we live, there are ordinances in every city that protect trees. And they're responsible for my employment. And they're very useful in helping people to make more responsible decisions about their trees.
Yeah. How do you differentiate hardwood in such a specialized niche within the arboricultural industry?
I don't know that I've done any particular, effortful marketing or specialization. I think people maybe come back to me because of the experience they have with me. Again, most of what I do is related to construction and tree preservation. So, people have a good experience and then they go on to their next project, or they refer me to somebody who's, building an ADU. When I started this, I was open to any and all assignments, right? If you look at my website right now, which just hasn't been updated since I built it, it lists almost everything a consulting arborist can do. But one thing that I sort of quickly came to realize is there's a lot of value, excuse me, there's a lot of value in specialization and focusing on one thing, both for getting better at that thing, but also for the efficiency of, my processes. And so I take on other assignments. I do tree risk assessments. I do some tree inventory and management plans. But really I'm set up and I'm focusing a lot more on helping people with tree preservation during development.
Do you do any appraisals?
I am trained at it, and it is a tangential part of some of the development reports, but I don't do appraisals that are like going to be used in litigation or really complicated appraisals on individual trees. There's a lot of things I don't do. I don't do really specialized plant healthcare consulting and helping people, troubleshoot complex landscape problems that deal with, weird irrigation and changing topography and, an insect that's also, eating their trees and killing their trees. And something gets really complicated like that and really needs somebody who specializes in that work. I have a Rolodex of referrals and I'm always happy to connect people. For you, someone talks to me about fruit trees and fruit production, and I'm just like, you're going to go to Circlefoot, you're going to go to Diego. Like, I'm not even trying to read about fruit trees.
Sure.
Like, go to the person that specializes in that.
I've always wondered about the valuation of trees, because I have a particular interest in valuing trees from a monetary perspective because of real estate in particular. Do you have like a ballpark? I'm thinking like 200-year-old mature oak tree, really, really good health, beautiful spread, just a magnificent specimen. Do you have like a ballpark number on how much that tree might be worth?
I don't. Order of magnitude, I could, if I was throwing numbers out there with a lot of variables.
Based on your
unknown,
experience, like here in the Bay Area, Menlo Atherton, Palo Alto, a lot of these more affluent
let's say
neighborhoods.
you're talking about like a really amazing oak tree, and it's in
something where you're driving down the street and you have to stop and admire.
Just shooting from the hip, order of magnitude. Let's say 50K to 100K.
Really? Only that much?
But again, there are so many things that go into this, what I think is
equation,
sort of a
right?
black box / like voodoo of tree appraisal that includes like certain limitations on that tree that are related to where, it's the setting it's in. Is it near a property line? Is it growing too close to another tree such that it won't get the full expression of its canopy? There's often going to be on that magnificent oak, there's often going to be some structural deterioration, right? There's going to be some decay that's just part of oaks that will reduce the score or the value of that tree. there in my industry, there is a cohort of people that are really do appraisals, get into them, geek out about them, and study them much more than just what our industry offers. They go to the original texts about appraisal in general. They pull a lot from real estate.
Yeah.
And they're doing all kinds of stuff that I, again, like just don't find interesting. Hedonic regressions and all kinds of stuff. And I'm just lost, and they will fight about it and bicker about it back and forth on these professional exchanges. And I just tune out. And again, like someone calls me and they're like, PG&E ruined my oak tree behind my house. I need an appraisal. And it's like, all right, well, I'll just send you to the guy who does the best appraisals.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that's going to help you preserve the trees on your property, get your permit with the least hiccups, and respond to your calls and do it all quickly. That's me. But if you need somebody who does something else, the appraisal guy doesn't want to do this tree preservation work. It's boring for them. It doesn't provide the same challenge. They don't get to play with their radars and their sensors and all the latest stuff they like to do. We each have our own lane, and
totally.
This is mine right now, and I'm enjoying it and feeling like it's the one to which I can provide the best value to people.
Do you have a particular project in your private business that you really are very proud of? A project, a client, an experience that you're just like, this one was magical.
I'm sure I do. And unfortunately, it doesn't pop to my mind. I will tell you one that's coming up that I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
Is the City of San Mateo Central Park playground improvements.
I heard about that project.
Yeah. So while I was employed with the City of San Mateo, I was reviewing all of the Arborist reports and studies related to tree preservation for this giant playground that's being put in. I think it's been in the works for over 5 years now.
There's some really old trees in that area.
Big trees. And it's I don't know if the design has changed from what I originally saw, but it's a massive project. And I was contacted by a construction management firm bidding on the construction management for this project, and they needed a sub-consultant for the tree protection. So starting, I think Wednesday's our pre-con meeting.
Oh, amazing.
So I'll get to be the project arborist, essentially, overseeing the preservation of the trees in Central Park that I was, have always been connected to and worked on in the initial stages of this project as a city employee.
That playground is pretty old, and the plans, because I looked at some of the plans that have been available online, and it's really cool what they're doing. The one tree that I'm thinking of the most is that ficus tree with the massive roots that are just super, they're probably 3 or 4 feet high. I'm hoping that is going to stay.
To be fair, I have not comprehensively reviewed the latest plan set. I plan to do so before the pre-con meeting on Wednesday, which leaves me, 48 hours. I'm almost certain that tree is staying.
Cool.
And it'll be my charge to make sure that the disruptions to it are as light and as possible and as least impactful as possible.
So when so something comes up for me, because you're now going into this whole private sector. It sounds like you have a really successful consultancy. How are you managing, family and business and fun? Are you finding it difficult to work on these projects and then, raise your son and then be a husband? Like, can you tell me a little bit about the balance, if there isn't any, or harmony?
I feel like the answer you might expect is, I got a new company and I'm just putting in all my time on it in the evening. I'm staying up late.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do it all. But honestly, my life's just gotten better on all those fronts. I'm motivated. I like to hustle, but I'm not a workaholic. I'm keeping regular hours or slightly less than. I leave myself a lot of margin, right? I don't rush out of the house in the morning. I build in a lot of time for myself, and not having a boss, like a boss allows me to do that. My work is very project based, and it really doesn't require a lot of FaceTime with other humans. So people aren't waiting for me, right? I don't have a calendar that's like all these appointments have hard start and end, and people are waiting for me. So it's like I show up and I do tree inventories, but I just have permission to access the property. I'll be there this day. There's no handshake. There's no walk around the property. I mean, that stuff happens, but most of it's pretty independent, which leaves me a lot of flexibility.
Oh, awesome.
I would say my family life and my relationship to my wife and my kid have improved since I became self-employed because I'm happier. Right. I'm spending my time like where I want and in control of my schedule, instead of perhaps being somewhere where it's like you get there at 9 and you leave at 5 and you may not like everything that goes on during the day. And then I get home and it's like, oh, well, now I need to do the stuff I need to do to take care of myself that's important to me, right? Whether it's like fitness or hobbies, and oh, well, I also have a son I need to pick up and hang out with, and dinner needs to get made, and like all the things. Now I have a lot more pockets during the traditional work week where I get those things done, feel better at the end of the day. It takes pressure off to like squeeze all that stuff in.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't really have it in San Mateo, but they got even less prevalent. It's like, I don't get like, what are they called? Like the Sunday scaries or the Monday scaries or whatever. There's no like, oh man, it's Sunday. It's like, it used to feel like a little bit of like a weird day. Like, it's like the end of the weekend. It's like the weekend and the week blur together now. And
that's so cool.
There's like, a lot about the week that I look forward to. It's really nice to take my son Makayo to swim class at 10:30 on a Thursday, and drop him off and then start my day at noon. Or, there's all my projects are in good shape right now. Like there's nothing really needs to be done. Like I'm going to, go play in my garden or like go for a hike or work out in the driveway. Like just stuff that you can't do if you report to a traditional employer.
Yeah. We talked about that on a previous show, the Sunday Scaries. Daniela, who was on the show, mother of 3, has a few businesses, and she says that she doesn't get the Sunday Scaries because she's been able to integrate her family, create the harmony. She's got her medicine, she's got her kids, she's got her business, and she has more time. She has more flexibility to spend time with them because she's designing her schedule around her family, which, is something I do too. So I completely sympathize and agree with that, because it's everything. You work, for me, you work really hard, not only to accomplish goals and, you're motivated to make an impact, but, you've got kids, you have a family, you want to take care of them. I'm wondering if you have any like arboricultural principles or any arboricultural, tendencies that you're passing on to your son. Is there like because he's what, 4.5, 4? Yeah. So he's a sponge right now. He probably is like, oh God, Daddy's like a tree man, and he probably knows so much, and like, teach me. Like,
yeah, he is a curious kid, never ending questions, retains everything. And the stuff that he is aware of, it just blows my mind. Like, it's not, I didn't know about these things growing up. And I think it's mostly just a testament to like absorbing his parents' interests and hobbies, right? So like yesterday we're planting stuff in the garden, right? And he's putting the markers in on the tiny little whatever spinach plants that we've started, and we're putting in. I'm like, put these markers in here because I don't want to step on. Well, why don't we want to step on them? It's like, they're tender, they're going to grow, all right, let's put some compost around here. What's that? I didn't know what compost was. I didn't know about weeds and how they compete with the plants that you're actually trying to grow. And it's nuts how much of that stuff he retains and is interested in. And I try, sometimes on the swimming day, maybe I'll have a quick site visit or two that needs to get knocked out, and I'll just bring him like, hey, help me measure this tree, or let's go look, do something together. We spend more time together driving around, and I really enjoy that.
That's awesome. And I know you're an avid and active fisherman. You do a lot of Bay Area fishing. How did that come about? Your love for fishing, was that just like another?
It's new, man. I sort of reinvented myself at the beginning of COVID.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, seriously. Like I met my current partner, Marcia. Though we're not married, I call her my wife because it's just easiest to, she's effectively my wife. But we met on the day of the shutdown, like the first day the beaches got shut. We had like our first date, and it was at the beach outside, and we hit it off. And then I think we also, there's a little bit of like, well, we probably shouldn't, like, we've already hung out. We're not going to hang out with other people. It's COVID, what's happening. So we were each other's like, COVID pod, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And well, what are we going to do? We've watched all the, Tiger King and all the other stuff. So, oh, you can catch crabs with fishing rods. All right, let's learn about that. So we caught some crabs with these snares, and we got schooled up in that. And then we realized, maybe we'll catch more with crab pots. So we're kayaking out there, and it just became this like massive effort of, YouTube, studying all these different ways to catch fish in the ocean, and then fortunately not dying at the beginning while we were learning about the important safety practices. I mean, we would just go. We didn't understand. I swear, I didn't understand that it got windier in the afternoon. I didn't understand that like the ocean was angrier one day than the other. We just was like, it's a nice day here.
Let's go.
Nice day in Belmont, California. Let's go to Half Moon Bay and in the 3 p.m. and put crab cages down. Like, we really are lucky to be alive. Now I am much more safety oriented, not just because I have a kid, but because I value life and don't like to be stressed the whole time I'm fishing. But yeah, I try to go realistically. It's probably like every few months. It used to be like several times a month. Mm-hmm. But I like it. It's fun for me. It's like, I mean, it's a challenge. It's a chase. It's a hunt. It's a pursuit, right? Mm-hmm. You have a mission. You go out on a mission. There's a little bit of scariness to it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nature to it. I just find it rewarding especially to do it on a kayak. I mean, it's the times when I get to go out on a boat. Totally. I think like, oh, it's great. Today we're going on a boat. My friend's got a boat. This is so cool. I don't have to wear a wetsuit. I can wake up later. I can bring all the food I want. I might even have a beer. And I get out, and it's just not the same to catch a fish when you're on a boat. Yeah. And then I watched that friend of mine, and I cleaned that boat at the end, and I'm like, there's nothing easy about this. Like, it's just, it's a slog, getting ready, cleaning it up, maintaining it. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any bucket lists on where you want to go fish or explore? And any trips lined up? It sounds like you were in Jamaica just recently, right? Did you go fishing in Jamaica? There?
I did not. We have a spot we love that's in Negril, Jamaica. It's just perfectly set up. It's like an outdoor courtyard style hotel resort that doesn't look like what I had pictured in my head. It's not like a walled off compound. It's not all inclusive. It's got a wonderful restaurant. It's like really well integrated with the local community. A lot of Jamaican nationals like spend their, vacations there, and the water's calm, and we go there with 20 people. Half of them are kids. And there's no problem just like having the kids in the water all day. There's no surf or anything to worry about. It was fabulous.
Nice.
Really. And those are what my vacations look like now, is like, can we just chill in one spot and be well fed and warm? That's ideal. Not a lot of ambitious adventuring. I don't really want to be carrying my stuff a lot of places in a backpack and on buses and figuring out logistics. I just want to like chill.
Yeah. That sounds like something I want to do too. Well, this has been great, Matt. I want to kind of close up a little bit about, want to circle back to trees, because, a lot of our audience is focused on building wealth for themselves, building a legacy through wellness, and how we take care of ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our environments. And a lot of people are just doing deals, like real estate deals. And a lot of folks don't really think about trees when they're doing real estate transactions. What do you have to say to those real estate investors, developers, these people who are out there wheeling and dealing, but aren't really thinking about the trees too much?
So they should call me. and they should have me check out these places that they're looking at purchasing or being involved in. And I'm happy to help them determine what the living assets are on the property, what the liabilities are. I mean, it goes in both directions. There could be something that they don't even know is the best thing on the property. There could be something they think is the best thing that's just a Swiss cheese at the bottom and is going to cause them a lot of problems, and that they could do a lot more if it was gone. With anything, right? The more information you go in with, the better results you get. And like especially in relation to the cost of doing real estate transactions in this area, I'm a very low cost way to get additional information at the beginning.
Nice. So how can people find you?
They can find me on my website, which is heartwoodarborists.com. They can Google Heartwood Arborists or Heartwood Consulting Arborists, or they can call me at 650-542-8733.
Sweet, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. This is awesome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Another episode of the Wealth and Wellness Report. If you like this episode, hit the subscribe button below, and we'll see you on the next one.